The reason perception feels so real is because you've never questioned the one thing hiding inside it. Not the world, not the colors, not the sounds, the you assume is experiencing that. You believe there's a subject in here looking out at an objective world out there. A watcher behind the eyes, a thinker behind thought, a perceiver behind perception. And almost your entire understanding of life depends on that assumption being true. Because if there's no perceiver, then what exactly is perception? This is where things start to get dangerous, because the moment you look directly at your experience instead of your ideas about experience, something very strange becomes obvious. You never actually experience a subject perceiving an object. You only experience colors, shapes, sounds, sensations, thoughts. That's it. The person experiencing them is inferred afterwards. Think about the color red. Right now, your entire model says, I am seeing red. But slow that down carefully. What is actually present? There's the appearance of red, and then there's a thought claiming ownership of it. I am seeing that. But where exactly is this I? Can you find it? Not the thought of it, not the mental image of the face, not the feeling in the chest, the actual perceiver itself. Where is it? Most people have never seriously looked because from childhood we were trained into a very specific model of reality. You were taught there's an external material universe existing independently of you. Inside that universe, plants, objects, bodies, and somewhere inside one of those bodies, you appear. A conscious creature looking out at the world through perception. So now reality gets divided into two categories, objects out there and subjects in here. But there's a massive problem with this model that almost nobody notices. You never actually experience this external objective material world ever. You only experience perception. In fact, everything you have ever called the world has only ever appeared as experience. Colors, sound, thought, memory, sensation. You have never stepped outside consciousness to verify something beyond it, and this creates one of the biggest unsolved problems of philosophy. How does unconscious matter produce conscious experience? How do dead atoms become the redness of red, or the taste of coffee, or the feeling of heartbreak? Nobody knows. And not only does nobody know, nobody even knows what a correct explanation would even look like. This is called the mind-body problem. But here's where it gets even stranger. The problem may only exist because we accidentally inserted an imaginary observer into reality. Look carefully. If red exists without something looking at it, can you still call it an experience? An experience for who? Like, who is it happening to? If you say, well, I'm the one experiencing it, again, where exactly is this I? This is the part most people avoid, because the moment you start looking for the perceiver directly, the entire structure begins to collapse. Close your eyes for a second. Notice thoughts appearing. Did you create the next thought before it appeared, or did it simply arrive? Did you create hearing? Did you create awareness itself? Are these things simply happening automatically? Now look for the one it's happening to, not conceptually, but directly. Can you actually locate a center, a witness, a self, or do you only find more thoughts claiming there's a self? This changes everything, because if the I is just another appearance in consciousness, then perception is not happening to anyone. Perception is simply happening. The colors stay, the sounds stay, the body stays, but the imaginary owner disappears. And this is the radical recontextualization almost nobody considers. What if reality is not made of unconscious material, objects being perceived by a conscious creature, but instead only consists of consciousness itself? Not your consciousness, not personal consciousness, just this open field in which everything appears, including the thought called me. Right now, it feels like you are inside of this body looking at the world, but look closer. The body itself appears inside perception. So does the world, so do thoughts. Even the sense of being a person appears inside of perception. So how could the perceiver be something separate from it? The mind will try to escape this by saying, okay, but obviously there's still someone having the experience, but it's just another thought. And the terrifying part is the thought feels personal. That's the illusion. The system creates a thought saying, this is happening to me, and immediately consciousness identifies with it. But the me being referred to is never actually found, only the thought is found. This is why self-inquiry becomes so destabilizing, because you begin realizing that the separate self was never actually a real entity. It was an interpretation, a mental overlay, a story attached to experience, and once that story starts dissolving, perception changes completely. Not visually, but existentially. The room and colors still look the same, sound remains the same, but they no longer feel like they're happening to a center. Experience becomes impersonal. It's just reality appearing. No owner, no witness behind it, no separate observer floating inside the skull. And if this sounds abstract, try this. Right now, without using memory or imagination, locate the boundary between you and perception. Where exactly does the world end and the perceiver begin? Can you find the line, or is there only one seamless field? This is what people miss when they think that consciousness is trapped inside the brain. The brain itself is something appearing in consciousness. You've never seen a brain outside of experience. You've never seen matter outside of consciousness. You've never accessed some hidden real world behind perception. That's an assumption. A useful model for science, but still an assumption. Science measures patterns within experience, but it doesn't explain why experience exists at all. And this is why perception is so misunderstood. People think perception is a window from which the self observes reality, but what perception might actually be is just reality itself. Not a copy or representation or simulation, but just reality directly appearing without a separate observer. And once this clicks, death starts looking very different as well, because what you fear losing is not consciousness itself. You fear losing the character, the psychological identity, the thought sense of me. But if the me was never actually an entity to begin with, then what actually dies? Notice something carefully. Right now, experience is happening by itself. Breathing is happening, thinking is happening, hearing is happening, awareness is happening without effort, without a central controller. Life is already functioning without the self you imagine is running it. The separate self is not controlling reality. It's a thought claiming ownership over the reality after the fact. And once that's seen clearly, the entire structure of suffering starts making sense, because suffering depends on identification. My fear, my pain, my future, my death. But if the self those things belong to cannot actually be found, then suffering starts losing the psychological center holding it together. This is why enlightenment is not about becoming peaceful or spiritual. It's not about positive thinking. It's not about transcending the human experience. It's about seeing something brutally simple. The perceiver was never there. There was never a little subject inside the head observing life. There was only life, only perception, only this. And the strangest part is that nothing needed to change in order for this to already be true. You don't need to create awareness. You don't need to become consciousness. You don't need to destroy the ego. You only need to notice that the one claiming ownership over experience is itself just another appearance within experience. A thought, a sensation, a mental image. Not an entity, not a self, not a perceiver. And once that illusion collapses, reality doesn't disappear, it becomes more immediate than it has ever been. Because for the first time, there's no longer the illusion of someone standing apart from it. There is only the raw appearance of existence itself, exactly as it already is.